Well, howdy friends, Brian, Flechsig and Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome to another one of our fly tying tutorials. Today I'm going to show you a stupidly simple caddis larva. You know, I guess I came up with it just messing around a device, but I think it looks really cool and it's been producing fish. You know, the past few years I've been doing some further research and updating my book on the Mad River, and I've been coming up with some new patterns that we've been using over there. And then I've been getting feedback from folks here on the internet and YouTube that have used some of these patterns and done pretty well. For those of you not in Ohio, you're probably not interested in the book, but I think some of these fly patterns are fairly universal. And of course, as you know, caddis flies are found in all of our streams. And this fly can be tied in a variety of sizes. You can play with the colors. But it's really super simple. So I'm going to start off with a tmco 2457 hook. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these Flymen nymph head evolution beads. This is the caddis version. I've been using these things a lot on a variety of my nymphs, and they're not just straight up beads. They're shaped and sized appropriately for different families of aquatic insects. You've got caddis, you've got the different mayflies. They actually make clingers, crawlers, burrowers. I'm going to show you a March brown nymph coming up in a few weeks that I'm going to use this on. But actually my absolute first step is to put my click glasses into place. That way I can find the bead to start off with. And there's a right way and a wrong way to put the bead on. There's a top and a bottom. There's a front and a back. And you should be able to figure that out. If not, hopefully you can see it here in the video. And when I first started playing with these beads, I kind of struggled a bit to get them to stay in place. But I'll show you a little trick using my UV epoxy here in just a second. But then I'm going to go ahead and start my thread behind the bead because that can help secure the bead in place. And for my thread, I'm just using good old uni thread 8/0. I like to use a fine thread for most everything I do. And you can also use the Vivas, say the Vivas 12/0 works great for this. So I'm just going to start my thread behind the bead and kind of leave it up towards the front. We can wrap back afterwards. Now, I want that bead to stay in place, and you'll kind of see the shape of it. And so try to get it to stay in place. And then I'm going to take just a quick shot of my Loon UV thin formula. I'm going to go right up inside the bead. Let's get it in position. And a lot of times I can use my thread to help me get it in position. Got it in the right spot, and now you're going to hit it with the UV light just for a couple of seconds. And that's going to kind of lock it in the proper position. Boom. Now I'll take a couple of turns of my thread there. Just kind of build up a little dam behind it, and all good. The bead's in position. Now I can wrap my thread back to the bend of the hook as I normally do. Of course, this 2457 from tmco is the curved caddis style hook. Gives kind of that posture that a caddis has when it becomes dislodged. Then for the rib, I'm going to use ultra wire, the brassy size. And I like to use gold on these green caddis larvae. Almost all the caddis larvae I tie are green. Here on the Mad in Ohio, which is where I do the bulk of my trout fishing and the bulk of my hatch matching, most of the caddis that we have are net spinners, the hydropsyche and the chematopsyche. And when they get dislodged from their nets and they're bouncing along the stream bottom, a lot of people believe that they're free living, the Rhicophilia. They're not. They're the net spinners. But I'm going to cut off about 3 inches of that wire. I'm going to lay it along the hook shank and just lash it in. Nothing special here. Lash it to the hook shank. Okay, I come down onto that bend pretty good, maybe a little further than you normally would on a standard shank hook. Just going to give that more of a curved or a postured look to it. And really, our last material is going to be 4-strand rayon floss. And this is, I believe it's called a light green color. I don't like to use the Kelly green because actually this is going to darken up a little bit when I put some UV on top of it. And I cut off my 4 strands, and just like I did with the the gold wire, I'm going to lash that to the hook shank, and then again wind up with my thread back at the bend of the hook so that I get the proper tie-in point. Now I can go ahead and bring my thread forward to just behind the bead, and that's it. I'm going to wrap the body and I'm going to rib it. Okay, so a lot of times with this floss, what I do is as I'm wrapping the floss, I'm kind of giving it little twists. And that keeps it from separating on me. So each time I get to here, I give it a little twist, kind of tightens it up, keeps it from splaying out. And then I'm going to give it a tie off with my thread. So I wrap the floss body, and you're trying to create a little bit of taper. All of your aquatic insects are going to be thinner back at the back of the abdomen and get thicker as they go up. Just kind of get that so it's not sticking up there. And now I'm going to take my copper wire and I'm going to come through. And what you're trying to do is create a look of segmentation with your, my gold wire. I said copper wire again. A well-tied fly, the ribbing like this, whether it's a gold rib, hare's ear, pheasant tail, whatever it is, the sign of a well-tied fly is evenly spaced, evenly angled ribs, and also I'm a little tighter on the spacing on the rear. Again, that gives that proper look of segmentation as that rib moves up the abdomen here. And then I'm going to tie off that wire, come in and trim tight, and now I'm going to take a few wraps, again building up a little bit of a dam behind that head. This is why I like to use that brown thread. It kind of blends in, and that's basically it. I'm done tying. I'll do my whip finish with my fingers here. Then once you get a couple whip finishes, you come in with your scissors, trim that thread, and off you go. Now, last step is I'm just going to put a beautiful candy coating along the back of this. Kind of darkens up the back. Just take my Loon UV epoxy, nice thin thread along the back. I kind of run it up and over my thread wraps and a little bit onto the head of this bug. Try to get it evenly spaced. And then, of course, come in with my UV light, hit her up. Doesn't take long, just a few seconds with the UV light. And then my last step, the cool thing about these nymph heads beads is they actually have little eye spots on them. So I take my Copic marker and I come in with the fine point on it and I hit those up with the black permanent marker. And as many of you know, eyes are important on a lot of different flies. And it just, it probably doesn't translate into catching more fish, but it makes me feel good, and it's just a really cool looking fly. Another variation I can do on this, if you don't want the bead head, you can easily tie these with a peacock curl for the head, and man, does that just become a simple fly to tie. So I think you'll see it's just a really, really sexy, really kind of grubby looking caddis larva. Like I said, that I've been tying almost exclusively and doing really well here on the mat, and I've used this fly over in Pennsylvania a bit too. So there you have it. I don't know what we call it. I think we'll call it the Stupidly Simple Caddis Larva. So as always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned. It's too early in the morning to tie flies. Prime example. So we're going to whip finish with our fingers again.